You ever see those comparison pictures online of like a pixel art on a CRT versus an emulator or whatever? I'm kind of obsessed with these. The way the artwork seems to completely transform through this weird lens. Like, what? No, absolutely not. What do you mean? What? Pixel art has been a thing since before pixels. People often look at it like it's an art style, but it's not, really. It's a medium. And at this point, a pretty mature one, with hundreds of games spanning multiple decades, all showcasing unique ways of conveying, wow, so retro, within a specific set of limitations. Here's a grid. It's 8x8. You gotta fit a guy in there. On my desk tomorrow, 8 a.m. Dickhead. That is so hard. It truly cannot be overstated how much that is so hard. Obviously, this is in part because of the universal challenges of artwork. You gotta know anatomy to draw the head, you gotta know warm and cool colors. But how do you channel that knowledge when Deluxe Paint 3 tell you not all Amiga 1000 support 64-color half-bright? What do you do in this situation? This is the question I asked Figgy, artist friend I know who I tasked with making a demake demo of his own game on a CRT with Sega Mega Drive limitations. I wanted to see if he could do it. See, he might be too stupid. Pixel art has changed a lot over time. The challenges pixel artists are forced to contend with today are nothing like they were 30, 40, 50 years ago, because the tools they use look nothing like the tools we have now. Figgy might be an experienced pixel artist, but he's never had to make something specifically for a CRT before, and never with this level of imposed hardware limitations. Can he do it? I don't know. We live in a pixel art golden age, but the language of the gold is built on decades of creative solutions to absurd problems caused by primitive tools. And I don't just mean software or even hardware. The screens that artists were looking at leading up to Y2K look nothing like what we got today. And, as we'll see, the unique characteristics of those older displays had a direct impact on the art being made with them. I do not completely understand how those displays actually work, but that doesn't really matter here. Like, the artists making these sprites probably don't know exactly how their TVs worked either. I don't know how paper gets made. I'm still an animator. Do you know how paper gets made? Tell me in the comments. You're so goddamn smart. I won't read it. It's worth noting that when you look at a video game, you're supposed to see the whole video game. But in order to avoid these ugly-ass patterns, I'm gonna have to be zooming in a lot. And I gotta ask you to watch this video in Mega HD full screen. This is not the way these games were meant to be viewed. The sprites being tiny is part of the look. Please bear this in your mind palace. Anyway, check this shit out. Streets of Rage 2 is full of weird little choices. In an otherwise beautiful game, look at how ugly these lights are. This sucks. But then you see it on a tube and holy shit. Not just the light. The more you look at it, the more everything benefits. The highlights on the pool table, the dithering under the table. Even the balusters are given a sort of sub-pixel curve because of how the light beam hits the pixels on either side. What? This isn't just the result of the CRT. The Mega Drive's noisy and shit video output smears color across the scan line and ends up blending everything together to create this illusion of transparency. It's so cool! Plenty of games, especially Genesis games, do stuff like this, but probably one of the most infamous examples of goofy pixel shit on the Genesis is the Sonic 2 waterfall. These sprites here, these are layered. Half of the vertical lines sit on a plane in front of the player sprite. See? Even seeing it like this in the first place is kind of a peek behind the curtains. Again, these colors are supposed to be smeared together so that you can see Sonic through the waterfall. Night and day, look at that. Sonic 2 uses this trick a lot, actually. It's all over Chemical Zone's pipes, too. Sonic teams seem to really enjoy playing with stylized distortion. The background art here looks completely different on a tube TV, IMO, TBH honest. I love the way the lights of the buildings here are blurred. It sells the cityscape for me in a way that the raw pixels just don't. These kind of pixel bending techniques, they aren't inherent to video games on TVs, but unless you want this video to be 3 times longer and learn the intricacies of the TRS-80 dome scene, console games are where we are staying today. We could trace some of these techniques back to the IBM PC if we wanted to, but I don't, and so we won't. Anyway, Sunsoft games on the NES often used pitch black to blur the line between sprites and background. Batman has some incredible backgrounds. Look at this. God, how many colors are they even using? Like, I could check, but I don't want to. Maybe you should instead pull your weight. They're doing so much, dickhead. They're doing so much with so little. I don't know how they did it. Like, I understand technically how they did it, but I don't know how they did it. Look at the helmet on the guy. It feels like a little visor now. Another of the more shocking examples you may have already seen is Symphony of the Night. The whole game looks better through a CRT, but Dracula's portrait specifically uses a goofy-ass trick to turn 2 red pixels into this. Like the Genesis examples, this works not because of the TV, but because of the artifacts created by the way the video signal is sent via NTSC composite. If you don't know what that means, that's fine. The crappy cable makes the game look ugly in a way that's pretty. The kicker is that color tends to artifact very differently over PAL as opposed to NTSC, meaning that a decent chunk of the population probably saw this completely differently, even back then. Curious. Dracula's portrait was probably digitized from this character art. I mention this because detailed character portraits in pixel games seem to invariably benefit from some level of obfuscation, whether via signal distortion, CRT shit, or both. Metal Gear Solid's 2D artwork is crammed full of dithering and rough edges that just disappear on vintage displays. It's insane! Same for Chrono Trigger, but it's not just character art. The entire game is dramatically transformed by analog distortion. There's so much texture, it's so much intentionality, so much little detail in every little thing. The way stray pixels become highlights, the way tiled sprite patterns get harder to notice. Like, even the menus look better. It's so cool! If you want to see all these techniques come together at once, Earthworm Jim is probably the best example out there. Every single pixel feels intentional. Vertical lines and dithering, the same techniques used in Sonic 2 to create translucency and in Chrono Trigger to blend colors, are being used together here to create entirely new colors that Genesis shouldn't even be capable of producing. It's unbelievable. Like, you cannot tell me that there are only 61 colors on this screen. I don't believe you. What do I say about this? This is like one of my favorite art things. Like, the distortion and obfuscation of pixel art as a medium is built on constraints that force artists to imply detail rather than actually creating it explicitly. It's like a painter using the texture of their brush to suggest leaves or whatever. It forces them to think about how they can evoke an idea without necessarily actually drawing it, to find new ways to stylize reality. A few sprinkled pixels become shimmering reflections, a dithered pattern becomes a shadow, spots of yellow become reflections on metal armor. The artistry on display here was driven by the limitations. Earthbound Pim and games like it are creative statements. They're taking all the rules and limitations laid upon them and just bending them however they can because they can. You know, maybe some people would prefer if it looked sharper and more modern and worse, but if not for the original crap hardware, if they weren't faced with such specific problems, they'd never have come up with such unique solutions. They got so lost in the sauce they cooked up a whole new flavor. We'll be right back with more Noodle Gaming. In the meantime, have you subscribed? Okay, have you turned on the bell? Okay, have you left a comment? Okay, have you left a like? Okay, what if you subscribed on Patreon? Thanks again for your purchase. Have a great day. Love you. If you're that guy, if you're still watching this, I didn't even like you. For those just tuning in, we've got a great selection of handheld devices here, both the ROG, Xbox Ally, and Ally X. I've actually been selling these phenomenal devices for nearly 20 hours. I've been told that I can't leave the studio until we sell one more. We've got another caller. You must be a fan of gaming on the go. You're on the air.
Hi, yeah, that looks pretty cool. You said you can't leave? Like you're stuck there?
So what you're looking at here is a fully fledged PC kitted out with up to 24 gigabytes of RAM. The Xbox Ally is selling right now for $600 at rog.gg/noodlexboxally, as well as the Xbox Ally X model for $900.
You can't just walk out?
I've checked the doors. They won't let me. Not until one more lucky caller jumps on this amazing offer. Look at this beautiful display. This is a full HD 120Hz screen. We're actually selling this thing bundled with 3 months of Game Pass right now. Caller, is that something you'd be interested in?
No, not really.
What?
No, I already got one. The ally, I got one yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you're stuck here, though. You really didn't know that guy?
Little to stop the free lion's decline. In hard times, however, this local bold man is trying to turn things around.
Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing. I just kind of get on the internet once every 2 months and make shit up.
Lil Massey has been producing videos on the internet for just over 4 years now, ranging from topics like games you say you've played but never have, to companies you say you hate but keep buying games from. It's all for one simple goal.
Money. Yeah, I have no passion for anything I've ever made. I had this American guy ask me for help with one of his videos. He's like a big chat GPT guy, I think. I don't even know what the video is like about. My plan is to hoard all of the cash and just kind of put it out of view of the tax man. Although I have noticed that there's a gap in the market for casinos aimed at middle school.
Thank you to all supporters who subscribe and ring the bell and comment and share and like and hype and subscribe on Patreon and send large wads of cash in the mail. Now back to more Julian gaming.
Nowadays, pixel artists don't have to deal with these kinds of challenges. Developers can pretty much do whatever they want. We're at the point now where pixel art's existence is oftentimes tangential to the environment it originally came from, if not removed entirely. Regardless of how it manifests, and despite the fact that we basically never need to pull the tricks that used to be necessary, you know, limited colors, dithering, pixel grids, most pixel artists still often reference those techniques because it's become part of the medium's language. You got artists making games today doing all kinds of goofy shit in every style you can imagine, but as I learned more about the classics, how the tools they use informed the art that they made, it got me thinking about how that might apply to the stuff we got today that's in some way analogous to the classics. What would, I don't know, Deltarune look like on a CRT? To be clear, that's not the same thing as asking what would Deltarune look like on original hardware, because for this and games like it, flat panels are the original hardware. I'm going to do it anyway, though, for fun. Getting these games looking just right on a real tube TV would be very hard for technical reasons I don't want to get into, so for the sake of playing toys, I'm going to use a software shader that emulates the behavior of a CRT. It's not perfect, but from where I'm sitting, having compared it to the real thing, it's pretty fucking good. So right off the rip, first thing you'll notice about Deltarune is that, like many of its contemporaries, the artwork often uses these high-contrast single-pixel details, like with Birdley's pupils here, which is something the classics often avoided because, well, yeah. Since ye olden devs often had no idea whether a single load-bearing pixel could be made out on a given display, best practice seems to have been to not do that. You might also notice the kinds of color choices the team made. Take the fountain here. This sprite looked good as hell. The way the uneven strokes imply a weird, wispy texture or something. I don't know, it's cool. And it gets completely lost in the filter. This is really common with Deltarune specifically. Part of why it falls apart is because they're not actually aiming for, like, NES-style pixel art a lot of the time. They're also doing, like, Game Maker 6 built-in drawing tool art. Part of it's also because they aren't making Deltarune on CRTs, to my knowledge. Game wasn't made for this. Go figure. There are exceptions. Soft-shaded, anti-aliased sprites actually look a little better to my eye at times, but on the whole, game suffers in how often small details are obscured or just lost entirely. Okay, let's try something a little more faithful. UFO 50 is cool game awesome that does a remarkable job of evoking the artistic stylizations of NES-era console games. And because of its relative faithfulness, a lot of its sprite work benefits hugely from the CRT filter. Look at Porgy. Hell yeah. Get it. Porgy makes heavy use of dark sprites against black backgrounds, which, unlike Deltarune, actually kind of helps it here. This was probably done because that's just what NES games looked like, but one of the reasons people did it this way back then was to achieve exactly the kind of effect you get through the filter here. It gets harder to tell where tiles end. They all kind of blend together a little more. My Joker mind fills in the gaps left by the distortion. It's cool as hell. It's not perfect. Again, Mossmouth weren't developing Porgy or any of the other 49 games for tube TVs as far as I'm aware. The artwork still suffers when too much detail is placed on a single pixel, which is probably why their built-in filter doesn't do much color bleed. I think that's why this is one of the only half-decent filters I've ever seen built into a game. It's not because it's faithful to a real CRT, but because it's evocative enough, but it still preserves the artistic intent. It's very cool. Celeste looks great. Obviously wasn't designed for this, though. Subtle things like the bloom kind of get erased. Other stuff gets obscured, and not in a good way. Same with Shovel Knight, surprisingly. As authentically so retro as this game looks, it just wasn't made for this, and occasionally, it shows. It's just interesting how right these games can feel through the filter, and yet how dirty these old displays and filters can actually do the games in question. Despite the fact that the techniques used can be traced back to the early days of the medium, these games were made on flat panels, and so they tend to look their best on flat panels. Same goes for the classics. There are cases like the Waterfall or the Dracula where they were obviously actively taking advantage of hardware quirks, but most of the time it's impossible to really say for sure. You gotta think, those old devs had to deal with some Harvey Epstein deadlines, dude. To meet them, they had to crank shit out as fast as humanly possible. Does it look good enough? Send it. On to the next. You got 30 more sprites to clear before lunch. I bet you more often than not, artists back then weren't thinking about this stuff until they had to, because something looked wrong. And even then, goofy shit fell through the cracks all the time. When I asked Figgy to tell me about how his process differed when he used a real CRT to make pixel art, here's what he said.
There's only so many things I was doing intentionally while working on it. A lot of it was sort of I don't know, I was just sort of naturally placing pixels in a way that I wouldn't normally be doing, because I would be looking at the CRT the whole time. Something like the glass counter, if I was just working in a game that was meant to be seen on clean displays, I would never even attempt something like that. I would try to find colors that already look transparent, or I just would not even attempt transparency at all. But when seeing it through this medium, it completely changes how you work with it. It just, as you build onto the drawing, it starts to look more like, I guess you could say, an authentic early pixel art game, but just different. Different from what you would see if you were just working with, sharp pixels on a clean display.
So which approach is better? I don't care. They're just different, because they were made differently. The tools, the environment, the tools will always inform the art. The way a thing looks can tell you a lot about the people who made it and the time in which it was made. Intentionally or otherwise, the classics were made on CRTs, and so they tend to look their best on CRTs. And I think that is cool. There is one exception, though. One game that's so goddamn faithful, so intimately familiar with its source material, that in my view, it straight up just looks better on hardware that, to my knowledge, it was never designed for. It's unbelievable. Dude, look at these sprites. Look at the waterfall. It's doing the Sonic 2 thing. Not everything the OG-san artists of old actually made when they were doing Sonic 1, 2, 3 was explicitly an artistic decision, but those quirks have since gone on to become part of what we all collectively see as classic Sonic, right? Pagoda West understood this so well that they perfectly emulated those quirks as a stylistic choice rather than a hardware trick. And they did such a good job that when you toss it back onto old, it looks like it was meant to be. God, I can't believe the waterfall's doing the thing! These levels could probably never be rendered like this on a Genesis for real, but they feel like they could. It's an evolution of the design language, and feeding it through vintage tech just shows how effective their approach really was. This is the yin to Sonic 4's yang, mini-clip looking at. Some of you might have been thinking this whole time, yeah, sure, this is all so retro, but I prefer sharp pixels. And I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, but you are right. And I am also right. There's no inherently right or wrong way to enjoy art, which is why having options is so important. This is shit I've been saying. And for once, players, artists, and developers are all spoiled for choice. Want to play the classics with sharp pixels? Go for it. Want it distorted like the good old days? Cheap CRTs exist, filters have finally started to get really good, and retro scalers are popping off crazy style. If you want to learn how to actually get your games looking like this, there's a link at the end to a tutorial I made. But yeah, the pixel art scene today is remarkably vibrant and diverse, and it's never been easier to emulate the look of a classic video game in whatever flavor a given artist or a developer wants. We have the choice today as artists. We can reintroduce restrictions to challenge ourselves or to evoke a particular style or period. We can retain the techniques while removing the restrictions as an aesthetic choice, or we can just do away with all of it in favor of some other shit. We are in the good timeline. I'm so happy. I get to end one of these videos on a note other than everything sucks and corporations are killing art. Like they are, but pixel art kind of stays winning. Pixel art is so cool. The world is so cool. It is a new and old day. The rain has stopped. The clouds have parted. The early worm in my apple is smiling. The birds are singing. And there is a rainbow. That is for gay people. Life is so beautiful.